Very good. Thank you so much. All right. So let's presume that, and hopefully people have already started a lot of their planning, but let's presume they're starting right now. What are three things you recommend that they think about? So Drew, let's go from you back this way.
Three things I recommend you think about. What is your customer thinking about? What do they care about? Everything you should be doing from a sales perspective should have intent and purpose, all aligning around customers. So I'm big on customer obsession, right? So it's what do they care about? What resonates with them? What's our value proposition? What can we bring to the mission to help them, right? So if you're thinking along those terms, you can formulate, if you're going into a first meeting with them or, the fifth meeting with them, right? You can kind of formulate a lot of the discussions that you want to have with them. You got to come in prepared, right? You got to come in with many questions. So a lot of what you should be doing, whether it's the first meeting, that discovery meeting with the customer, or if it's like the fifth or sixth meeting where you're trying to advance the deal, right? The opportunity, you really need to do a lot of preparation. A majority of your job should be preparing, right? So you got to be thinking in context of what do they care about, not what you care about, because they don't care about what you care about, right? So.
I want to ask a follow-up question. On our last panel, we talked about buyer behavior. And one of the things that came up is there's a lot of new people in roles. A lot of people, obviously, a lot of people are retiring. A lot of people were forced to retire. A lot of people made the choice to retire, not just in B2G, but in B2B as well. So there's a lot of new people in roles. What's the biggest shift? What's the biggest shift we expect to see in B2G and B2B buyer behavior in 2026, and how should sellers prepare?
But I mean, AI is everywhere, right? Everyone's bringing it up, how it's going to affect, everyone's working behavior, right? So on the buyer side, on our side, right, on the sales side, how does it affect our job? But I mean, Fred, you pointed it out. You have to be very cognizant of the changes that are happening. Right? There's significant changes happening and there's a significant shift in our federal government. People that you were relying on or depending on or plan to engage because of the specific position that they were in may or may not be in that position anymore. They may be in another position. So you really got to understand who's where, doing what their role is, and how that's going to affect the way you're going to approach your scenario, right?
It's imperative upon selling professionals to educate their customers, help them understand not just how their technology will help, but how the overall scope of things. I did a Sales Game Changers podcast with a couple of CIOs for the government. And the one bit of advice, well, they gave us a lot of advice, but the final thought was, help me understand where the market is. Give me those insights.
You got to come with questions, right? So that goes into the preparation, right? That goes into your planning. How many times have you walked into a meeting and you've planned for this meeting? Does the meeting go exactly as you planned for? Right? You got to be able to have, all those questions on a page so that you can be able to try to direct that conversation. But the customer is going to want to talk about what the customer wants to talk about. Right? So you have to be able to pivot. So the questions need to be formulated in a organized fashion so that you can try to direct that conversation. Oh, and by the way, if they deviate from it, you can always try to bring it back with another question, right? So a lot of it's preparation. Preparation is so important. You talk about the discovery, but really the discovery should be for every single meeting. And as you go through the sales process and you have more and more meetings, you're going to be able to build off of all the information you've gathered. And I mentioned AI earlier. Gosh, information is so easy to get now. You mentioned the public speaking engagements. Whenever, in my position, whenever I'm meeting with a senior leader, I would say 9 times out of 10, that person has had a public speaking engagement somewhere at a conference or something. I can easily go and find that, pull things out of those speaking engagements that they care about, and then tie our story and our value to those things that they've mentioned. I mean, they're like, oh, then they want to start talking to you, right? And then they start leaning in. So those are some of kind of wouldn't say tricks of the trade. It's just kind of, you need to build that into your cadence. The meeting is kind of that fourth quarter, right? I'm a big football guy. I love football, right? But the meeting is that fourth quarter, right? You've got to do all this, the practice, right? The two-a-days, all of that stuff, preparing to get to that fourth quarter. And then when you're in that game time scenario, how are you going to perform, right? And what are you going to ask? That's so important. It's so key. Everybody should be figuring out how they're going to leverage their teammates going forward. I mean, I know at Zscaler, we have so many resources for our teams to leverage. He talks about partners, right? How are you going to leverage your ecosystem partners? If Elastic has an account that we don't have, or if Elastic's deep in it, how are we partnering with Elastic, right? Because we do partner with Elastic, right? How are we partnering with Snowflake, Okta, CrowdStrike? Those are the go-to-market ecosystem partners. Like, how are you formulating your sales motion around your partner community, but around your teammates? It's so important. Like, nobody should be a lone wolf anymore in sales. Nobody. You have an SE, Batman and Robin, right? You got the account executive, and you got the engineer, right? It's Batman and Robin. You got the quarterback, and then you got the running back, right? But there's so many other players on the field for you to be leveraging, right? And how are you building your strategy around how you're going to leverage your teammates? It's so key. I see so many reps, even reps on my team today, and I got to pull them back and remind them, like, what are you doing with these guys? How are you leveraging the CTO team, right? How are you leveraging, just because you have an all-star SE doesn't mean he knows how to talk about, for example, Gen AI, right? And the CTO team can help you with that, right? The other thing I'll say is, from my opinion, no customer is not important and no deal is too small, right? So I've got huge deals that we close. We've got some small deals we close, right? No deal is unimportant to our success. Because look at Darryl sitting up here. Yeah, he was at DHS, right? He was a CTO at DHS. You never know where this person that you're selling to is going to be in a year, 2 years, 5 years, right? You could be I can't tell you how many times in my current role, I am selling again to the same people that I've sold to over the past 16 years of my sales career, right? It's just so important. So I know Darryl has a huge network. Melissa has a huge network. We all share many shared contacts in our networks. That's another thing. I mean, you have this huge team that you're leveraging. Like, who are they connected to? And how can they help you, right? Because they're going to be relying on you as well.
Let's get specific. 3 things that your reps should be doing to grow their partnerships.
Have fun, right? I mean, Fred, you mentioned dinners and things like that. Like, I kind of leaned in on my partner organization about a year ago. COVID was weird for everybody, right? So we kind of got used to staying at home, doing Zooms, all that stuff. Get out and go do something, right? We have a pickleball event this afternoon, right? With our partner team is hosting a pickleball event with some of our partners, right? Go do some fun stuff, right? These guys have budget, by the way. They have budget to do stuff, right? So lean in with, if you're a sales executive or you're on a sales team, like, lean in on the partner team and say, hey, get creative. I came down and leaned in on my team about a year ago, and I said, we're not doing enough fun things. People do business with people they want to do business with, right? If you're not making any difference in these people's lives, they're going to go to the partner that is, right? So go out and do some fun stuff, right? Go have fun with it.
So let's talk about, let's address it from the seller side and from the customer side. What are you seeing people do, et cetera? What are your recommendations on how sellers should be using AI specifically to gain that 2026 advantage? And just curiously, if there's any mistakes that you see them doing as well.
You got to be careful. You got to make sure that you're staying authentic, right? One of the most important things about your sales career is your brand, right? You don't want AI or becoming too reliant on AI to tarnish your brand. So if you're going to use email, you're going to use AI in email and make it more autonomous, you got to be very careful, right? You got to be very careful. I mean, I'll give you an example of ChatGPT. This is something I believe everybody should be doing. My wife uses ChatGPT like every single day, to the point where she's like, what hotel do we want to stay at in this city when we go this month? Tell us what the weather's going to be. It comes back and spits out, well, will you be bringing your children or not? Right? Will Vincent and Hazel be joining you on the trip? If they're going to be joining you, here are the hotels we recommend. In June, the weather's going to be this, and they have a nice outdoor restaurant. Like, think about that, right? Think about that in respect to you building your model, right? And how you can use that to build how you're going to approach your sales, right? I mean, there's a lot of information that goes into these. And 10 years ago, I was at a conference with Google, and Google was talking about it was more ML, machine learning, right? It was more all about ML. Now AI is kind of taken over because the large language models have been pretty much built out, right? So just think about how you're going to use AI. Be really smart about it. You can't lose your authenticity of who you are and what your brand is.
Give us the audience some advice on how do you build that brand? What does it mean? The word brand in this context, and give a couple of thoughts, ideas. Like I mentioned, one bit of advice we always give is you want to be the guy or gal who's the cybersecurity expert for the Navy. And if you're local, you want to be the top real estate agent in McLean or whatever it might be.
Yesterday afternoon and last night while I was prepping for this session, right? I came across an interview, and I mentioned I'm a football guy, right? So I came across this interview that happened yesterday afternoon. Most of you, because you probably, unfortunately, have a lot of Commanders fans in here. Most of you probably know who Kirk Cousins is, right? And then if anybody watched Quarterback from Netflix, they did a deep dive into Kirk Cousins and his faith and how important it is. Well, Kirk Cousins, I'm going to reference a quote from Kirk Cousins last night because Michael Penix Jr., who was the starting quarterback, who won the job over Kirk Cousins, is out for the season, right? He has a partial tear in his ACL. He's out for the season. So Kirk Cousins said last night, and think about this, right? Think about this. You don't use people to advance your position. You use the position you have to advance people. Okay? So this quote highlights his philosophy that his role as a quarterback is to build up his teammates and help them succeed, rather than using them merely as the means to further his own career. He views the quarterback position as an opportunity to lead and support those around him, a mindset he enjoys and intends to carry on long after his playing days are over. So when you talk about brand, your brand is affected by so many factors. But the most detrimental factor is how you treat people, right? If you treat people with care and passion and compassion, you're probably going to get that back. If you treat people like, you're going to get some sort of reaction you probably won't like long term. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. I want them to be themselves. I want them to be authentic, right? Their brand is their brand. My brand is my brand, whether I'm with Zscaler or prior companies or whatever. But I want you to be authentic, and yeah, I do. I want you getting out there. I want you networking. I want you meeting people. Some leaders take that as kind of I don't want them out there because I'm afraid to lose them. If you're managing or leading your people that way, you're not allowing them to be successful, right? You're not allowing them to grow. And I need my team to grow. Somebody said earlier is if you're not successful, then I'm not going to be successful. I tell my team all the time, I was like, if you're making your number, you're happy. And if everybody on my team makes their number, I make my number, right? So if everybody on their team's exceeding their goal, I'm exceeding my goal, right? I'm only going to be as successful as you're going to be, right? And I truly, truly take that to heart, right? I want to put each person on my team in the position to be successful. So I try to give them everything I can to be successful, for them to be successful. And you know, I've got teammates in here that work for me, and you can ask them. I'm here to help them. You know, I tell people all the time, I'm like, you don't work for me, I work for you. Tell me what you need, and my job is to go and get it for you, right? I think that's being the best leader I can be, right? Is get my people the things they need to be successful. That's my job, right? At the end of the day. If I can't do that, if I'm not doing that, then I need to move on, right?
I want to thank our panelists. Before I ask you for your final thought, I'd like to each of you to submit to the audience a habit that you do religiously, whenever, morning, week, whatever, a habit that you do that you wish that your sales professionals also did that has led to your success.
You need to focus on yourself, right? And what I mean by that is health-wise, mental-wise, right? So, and it varies from person to person. Everyone needs an outlet, right? I mean, we're working. We were talking earlier at the table here about when it was COVID. I remember I'd be on Zoom from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., right? And I think what happened there is you have to keep areas of your calendar, daily calendar, sacred, right? To reflect and focus on you. So I work out, right? I don't work out 7 days a week. I used to. I work out, 3 to 4 days a week. I spend time with my family and my kids. I watch a lot of sports, right? I mean, so those are some of my habits. Podcasts are big. When I get in the car and I'm going somewhere for like a 20, 30-minute drive, I pop on a podcast. And it's just kind of a way for me to relax and to listen. I'm not projecting. If I don't need to make a phone call, which I should probably be making many phone calls because I got to check in on my team and things like that. But a podcast gets me it's my time for me to relax, listen to something else, get education as well. You're right. You're getting information from some of these podcasts. I won't put a plug in like Melissa was saying on any of the podcasts, but if you want to know which ones, you can come and talk to me. But yeah, I mean, everyone needs a break, from the grind, right? Especially if you have a sales career, you're constantly like trying to figure out how to advance things. Your brain is constantly churning, and it's taxing, right? It's taxing on you mentally, physically. So you need a break. You need to focus on yourself.
Nice and succinct. I want to thank the panelists for the great ideas. You definitely exceeded what we were hoping to get across today, and this should definitely give a nice launch for people to succeed in sales in their 2026 plan. Give us a nice crisp thought.
I would not be up here today. I would not be where I am in life or in my career without my parents, my wife, but mentors. I challenge every single one of you to build your mentors, right? I've got about 5 of them, right? Former bosses, current boss, right? But mentors are so key because you need to talk to people, right? You need to bounce ideas off of people and people that you've built a relationship with, that you have trust with, right? So I think mentors are key to your success, right? And trying to emulate. I mean, if you have 5 different mentors, right? Think of the history and the examples and the experience that those folks have where they can help you kind of think outside of the box, right? Think outside of what your targeted thinking approach is, right? So I challenge each of you to build your shelf of mentors.